Welcome back to the MyoBrain YouTube channel. Of course, it is Greg Ferris, the founder of MyoBrain. This video will be talking about my recent experience in Hyrox, Atlanta. And the theme of this video is going to be how I set an 8-minute PR from 2024 to now 2025. I essentially ran a 116 last year in Dallas and then ran a low 108 of this year in Atlanta. So a very big improvement. And this video will have 5 takeaways that I used in my own training. A lot of things that were different from how I prepared in 2025 and 2024. And these things I think will be helpful for anybody who's looking to do a Hyrox. Before I jump into these things, I want to make it very clear, I am not an elite Hyroxer. I'm like a high-level intermediate Hyroxer, but to be honest, that's where most people probably are or aspire to be. Just statistically, not very many people are going to go do the pro division and go under an hour. The number one thing that I changed that I think contributed to my 8-minute PR in 2025 is more free running. So what I mean by this is more just running outside on the roads and then more use of a non-motorized treadmill. So this was a huge departure from 2024 in which I probably ran outside maybe once a week. The other 2 or 3 runs, whether it would just be just a run or a mixed sort of Hyrox style workout, was on a traditional treadmill. Now, I'm not saying that was bad, but for me, as someone that does not have a running background, I benefited a lot from learning my own pace with like what I would call free running on an open road, where if I want to run a 4:30 per kilometer, I can't just set it on a treadmill and essentially just not fall over. I have to commit to my stride being 4:30. And very similar even on a salt runner, which you have to pull the sled. Most of my prep, again, let's call it like 16-ish weeks, which I was serious about it, I was doing at least 2 open road runs. One was kind of more like speed oriented, think like 800-meter repeats, stuff like that. And then one was just kind of like very like zone 2 focused, like a 55-minute run at 120 beats per minute or something like that. And then I would do one like kind of Hyrox style run at the gym, where I would do a run, sled push, burpee broad jump intervals. And again, this year that was on the assault runner versus the treadmill. And I can't know for a fact, but man, just when I ran in the race, it felt like I was just so much more confident. Okay, my number 2 thing that I think made a huge difference in my 8-minute PR was more specificity on the sleds. I'll maybe post up some graphics here of my sled time improvements on the sled push and sled pull between 2024 and 2025. I don't know the exact amount, but it was a lot. It was like probably 45 seconds to a minute on each of those pieces, which is huge, right? I will never make that jump again within a race. So in 2024, all of my sled work was really on, I think, what's called a torque sled. It's a great sled, but these things have wheels, and it's very hard to mimic, in my opinion, a Hyrox sled in which it's more of that traditional, again, I'll post a photo somewhere, like CrossFit sled you would see very low to the ground, which is like the post, right? I would load up that torque sled with an obnoxious amount of 45s, probably like 500, 600 pounds. And it never just got that hard because, again, it has wheels on it, right? It's just going to kind of flow a lot easier. And I got to the race and the sled push didn't feel like dramatically hard to me in 2024, but like as a strong person, I was surprised of my like ranking there. I was like, man, like I'm probably stronger than like 95% of people in this race. I'm surprised I don't like just kind of do well with the sled. Like almost none of my sled push work on the torque sled I had access to translated much at all. I think just like squatting and deadlifting and probably actually finding a real sled like 2 weeks out would have yielded a better result. Similar thing on the sled pull. I think when we train clients for Hyrox events, when I kind of look at people online training for Hyrox, that's probably logistically the most challenging thing to train for. I know it is for me because you need a lot of space and the particular equipment of like a rope length and also, again, the specific sled, hopefully. In 2024, I really just did, again, the torque sled. I would load it up pretty heavy. And then I had like a TRX band, if you're familiar with that, which means it's a fixed amount of space. Let's say it's like, I don't know, 6 feet. And I would just walk back the sled like that. And I would try to mimic a Hyrox, in which if you've seen someone do it, done one yourself, you know, you stay inside of a box, right? So what I would do is just get the TRX band, take like 5 steps back, and then kind of pause a bit, and then keep doing that. And I think when I got in the race, I was I underestimated how different it would feel when you have a long rope, and especially how much harder it is, and just the technical aspect of when you're over here and the sled's over here, how much like you have to get the slack out of it, your footwork. It's obviously a lot harder here. Then as the sled gets closer to you, it becomes easier. Again, I did not practice that at all in 2024. And then in 2025, I don't know if I mentioned this yet, but I went to a CrossFit gym probably the last 8 weeks or so before the competition. Again, sleds aren't like super technical. I don't think you have to train on sleds like year round if you want to get decent at a Hyrox. But it was essentially the same type of sled you would use at a Hyrox. And then, especially on the sled pull, because the CrossFit gym has the space, and again, it has like wasn't the exact rope, but a similar-ish rope, I could work on that. I could work on choking up on the rope, taking the slack out, really pulling it back, all of those things. So just goes to say, and I'll tell our clients this as well. Again, if you find a race that you're 4 months out of, 5 months out of, and again, if you're not trying to like win the damn thing, I don't think you need to be doing sled work immediately, like 20 weeks out, 5 months straight of doing sleds twice a week. You can do that. I don't think it's essential for the average person. But I do think probably somewhere between 4 to 8 weeks out, you want to get some specific work as much as you can, wherever you have access to things, right? With that style, with the sled in particular style. So you can build a good base doing squats and deadlifts and front squats and just getting strong with your lower body. Eventually, you want to actually practice on what you're going to play on. It's in the warm-up area. It felt like how it felt in training for the most part. In the race, it actually felt better than it did in training. Again, that was my second tip. My second benefit, I think, is that a lot more specificity on the sled led to a massive improvement in my times overall. Okay, number 3 thing that helped me set a 8-minute PR. I am so sad to say this as a gym junkie, and for any of my gym bros out there, love some bicep curls and bench press, but it was less strength training. Now, again, I'll caveat what this is saying. I can squat 400 plus pounds, deadlift 500 plus pounds, etc. Right? So this may be different if you're someone who has like not touched a barbell in 3 years, right? This is an endurance race. This is a running race. I cannot say that enough. This is not a hybrid event. There is not anything heavy in this event if you've actually someone who's lifted weights for an appreciable amount of time. Even when I look around the race, 95% of people I don't think are like struggling with the weights, with the lunges. They look tired, right? So keep that in mind. But I'm coming from on the spectrum of people who have done a Hyrox. I am like very much an outlier on my strength coming into the sport. In 2024, I don't know exactly, but I was lifting weights probably about 3 hours a week, like 4 sessions for about 45 minutes. And that was really throughout the entire prep. Again, let's say 4 months overall. It was a lot of lifting. It was twofold. Number one, I just didn't want to like lose strength and size. I wasn't maybe as bought in with Hyrox as well. It was still my priority, right? But I wasn't willing to give up lifting to like maybe juice out a couple of like percentage points, right? On the event itself. And I slowly started to say, okay, if I'm going to do a long run on Wednesday, or if I'm going to do 1K repeats on Tuesday, I'll just be fresher if I don't do a 4x8 back squat on Monday before that. Maybe I'll do 2x8 back squat, and maybe I'll also just do it with less weight, right? Much lower RPE. I won't do 315 for 8. I'll do 225 for 8, right? and just less of that, right? Less squatting, less benching, less et cetera, like less all of those things, I think made a massive difference for me personally. Really twofold. This is why it helped. Number one, it gave me the literal time to do more long running, more specific Hyrox work, more sleds, etc. Right? Because none of us, or very few of us, are pro athletes where we're training 20, 30 hours a week where you can just do everything, right? You kind of have to say, this is how many hours I have. How can I be the most efficient? What's the best bang for my buck? And again, newsflash, like doing a whole bunch of squats and deadlifts 3 weeks out from a Hyrox, not a good use of your time if you're trying to do well there. So I just needed more time to like do the long runs, to do the long bikes, to do the big Hyrox style workouts. And then the second thing, of course, just my recovery. I just felt better going into those sessions. So I gave up a lot of the strength work. I'd probably say I was lifting close to 2 hours a week in that, like, let's call it 2 phases. Let's say maybe 16 weeks out to 8 weeks out. I was probably lifting about full body, like 2 sessions, 1 hour. About 8 weeks out, I cut it to like maybe an hour a week of dedicated like bodybuilding, powerlifting style training. Now I would do like more sled stuff and things like that. So maybe you can, count that. But I wouldn't, right? I would call a sled pull workout a Hyrox session. I wouldn't call it a strength session for me personally. So yeah, I hate to say that as someone that loves lifting weights. I kind of just use strength training as a mode to like, I don't want to get dramatically weaker, right? But I was not really trying to actively get stronger for about 4 months leading into the event. And obviously the proof is what the proof is. I was substantially weaker in 2025, and I had an 8-minute PR. All right, number 4 tip that I think led to my big PR. Again, this is something I was a little bit skeptical on in 2024, but this was trusting my pace on my easy runs. I really did not do like any low intensity, steady state runs at all in 2024. 2 reasons for that. The first reason is like almost like couldn't. My calves would blow up, my Achilles would hurt quite a bit, my feet would hurt if I just like ran for more than like 15 minutes just consistently. So a part of that is I probably wasn't conditioned enough to even like I couldn't have went for an hour-long run. Like I would just fall apart. I would need to do like a run walk, right? And the second thing is like just in the back of my head, I was like, how does running a 9-minute mile make me faster, right? Like it was something just so hard to conceptualize as someone that comes from a strength background, right? It would be silly if someone said, hey, you know how you bench 315? You bench 185 for a lot of reps. That's not how strength works at all. Why not try it, right? Like I kind of committed to 2 things, lifting less and then replacing a lot of those lifts with long, what I would say is very boring, steady state runs, right? So I mentioned this before, but probably in that first block, 16 weeks out to 8 weeks out, it was 1 long run a week, maybe like 30 to 60 minutes, starting at 30, progressing up more in time. And then probably 8 weeks out, I was even doing 2 of those. I was doing that on Wednesday and on Sunday. So you're probably talking about 2 hours a week, which is a lot for me to just do 9-minute mile runs, right? Is kind of what it was. Keeping my heart rate below like 150. But particularly the easy runs, I felt just built my confidence up of just more time on your feet. You feel more comfortable running. And again, there's a big difference for me in Hyrox Atlanta. When I was out there running, I kind of felt weirdly like a runner. Like I knew how to breathe, like I knew my strides, knew how to took corners. I kind of knew when I needed to pick it up, when I needed to slow it down. And I think a big part of that was just I spent way more hours running. What improved for me in my training was my ability to run longer distance at easy efforts. And most importantly, on my big Hyrox sessions, again, something like 5 rounds of a 1K run, 50-meter sled pull, 50-meter burpee broad jump or something like that, I could hold those tough paces much, much, much better. I wasn't falling apart, right? So second thing on this list, which I was just like, I don't want to do it, all right? I don't want to go for a 60-minute run. I'm not that person. It's not the most fun part of my week to do those things. I'm not in Hyrox prep right now. I am not doing hour-long runs. That's something, that's like eating my vegetables within this sport. But I do think it has a huge benefit. Again, for me, for someone who's ran a 3-hour marathon, I don't think you need to be doing a whole bunch of that additional stuff. But if you're a meathead like me, humble yourself, right? Again, go do a 30-minute run and do 2-minute run, 1-minute walk. I promise you, you're not too good for that, right? I got 24th out of like 800 people at my Hyrox, and just a year ago, I couldn't run for longer than 15 minutes consecutively. The fifth and final thing that I think led to my big 8-minute PR was more experimentation on the Hyrox specific workouts. So I was typically doing only one really hard Hyrox workout per week. Maybe I'll do a different video on that. I think people do way too much like high intensity, like Hyrox, like very specific stuff, which I just don't think is the best way to like build yourself as an athlete. So typically on Fridays, I would do that. Again, I'll do a workout like run, sled pull, burpee broad jump. And then maybe I'll do that for 30 minutes and I'll rest 5. I'll do a next workout of like run, row, farmer's carry, right? Just kind of intervals of those things. Every Friday was something similar to that. And the key here is I had a lot more experimentation. That's the word I want to underline here in 2025. So in 2024, I kind of would just do the way I would explain this. If you've done CrossFit before, I was doing all of my workouts. Like I was trying to get the best time possible. So let me think of let me actually pull up a workout that I literally did. I'll post this workout on the screen because it's kind of a lot, and I'll read from my computer here. But you'll get the idea of this, right? So I did a workout that was kind of 3 phases. It's like a 2-minute run, sled push, 2-minute run, sled pull. Now I would just do an AMRAP of that for 20 minutes. I rested a bit, and then I did a similar thing, 2-minute run, 40-meter burpee broad jump, 2-minute run, 50-meter walking lunges for 20 minutes, rest a little bit, and then did like a 10-minute run into 50 wall balls. And that was a very like those style of workouts, big sessions, like hour-long sessions of intervals of that stuff was, again, I think a key for me. But the thing I want to talk about here is the experimentation again. So if I did a workout like that in 2024, I would do it like I was a CrossFitter, which I was trying to pace the whole thing so I could get like the most amount of rounds in 20 minutes, right? Which is not a bad way to go about it. You learn how to pace yourself and all of those things. But in 2025 is having more confidence in the movements and kind of just wanted to be more aggressive in the race overall. I would go into workouts with a specific intention, right? So I may say, okay, I'm going to do the run, sled push, run, sled pulls. But I may tell myself like, I'm going to hold, I'll do this in kilometers, like a 430 per kilometer on the run, no matter what, right? You've been running 440s, 450s, make yourself run 430s. If you have to change your sled strategy, whatever, but you have to run that. That is your actual goal, right? And so I would kind of learn, okay, is 430 too fast? Or I'm like, oh, I actually can hold that 430 pace. It's not as daunting as possible. I only, maybe if I do that run at 430 and I do the sled push, and typically the sled push maybe takes me a minute, and now it took me a minute 3 seconds. I'm like, that's no difference. You can run that fast and still push the sled at a good pace, right? So of course I would play around with that. Sometimes I would do it on the run and be like, okay, run a 410. And you'd be like, okay, I can't run 410s and do wall balls. Sometimes I would fall apart. I would get like 8 and then be like, I feel like I need to quit this workout, right? So I'd experiment sometimes, push too aggressive. I experiment sometimes, it'd be like a good unlock of like, ooh, this is good. And same thing on the stations, right? I would have sessions like, let's say on the wall balls, right? Where I would kind of force myself, okay, if you're gonna do rounds of like, say a 1-minute run and then do like 50 wall balls, I would tell myself like, you have to do these in 2 sets or less, right? Like no matter what. So if you have to slow down on the run, slow down on the run. But if you're doing maybe 3 rounds of that, the rule is you have to do the wall balls and 50, or maybe I would do 30 wall balls, and so you have to go unbroken or whatever it was, right? And now again, that would teach me, okay, now when I'm in the race or I do these other workouts, I'm collecting data points of, can I do burpees faster? especially on the ski and the row, right? I would say, man, like I can go row 152, but that hurts me so much when I go into the next station or into the next run. What if I row a 158 and I lose whatever 12 seconds on that station, but I feel so good the back half of the race, right? I was just way more like intentional about all of that stuff going on, right? I would have sessions where, like I said, I would row harder, row easier, burpees harder, burpee easier, etc. I went into every one of those big Friday sessions with a distinct intent. And again, sometimes I blew up, sometimes it felt great. But then when it came into, of course, you should be doing some like Hyrox style simulations. Like I think 3 weeks out or 4 weeks out, I did the front half of the race, rested 2 minutes, did the back half of the race. When you spend a lot of your sessions in 10 weeks out, 9 weeks out, doing that experimentation, when you show up to like the simulation style workouts or stuff like that, you now have just a better strategy, right? You've made some good decisions, you've made some mistakes, and now you kind of know how to actually put it all together. Average run in 2024 was 5 minutes per kilometer. My average run in 2025 was 4:19. So I improved by 41 seconds per run on that. And a big part of that was for me humbling myself on the stations. I don't need to crush the sleds. I don't need to crush the burpee broad jumps or crush the farmer's carry. I need to be able to run faster, right? So I would force myself to do that. I'd force myself to run faster in mini workouts and totally blow up on the stations sometimes. But I learned to find that proper pace, or I learned, like, again, who cares if your row slows down by 6 seconds if you can improve the run by 41 seconds. It takes a lot of experimentation to know how to put all those pieces together to get your own personal best time, I would say. Again, that is it for this video. 5 techniques I used to improve my Hyrox by 8 minutes in about a year. I'll be doing plenty more kind of Hyrox stuff coming up, and just lessons I learned in my first 2 races. I will almost certainly be doing some more races in 2026 as well. Right now, I'm trying to like get a little bit more of my muscle back and just doing like some more general training, like more biking, more lat pull down, stuff like that. But I'll be looking at the calendar in 2026, maybe go to the pro division. I think I'm kind of ready for that. Now doing a 108, I think that's a pretty good time. And yeah, we'll see you in 2026.